Yep, we're seeing your screen correctly.
Okay, excellent. And we're off. All right. So today we're talking about how to simplify and reduce parent communication workload by 90%. I also want to say that there's another, you could call this topic, we were thinking about a different title as well. That other title, it might sound different, but it's actually one and the same. The other title is how to find and keep the best families for your school. Okay, so if you take a look at this picture, I'd love to, just ask yourself if this is familiar to you, if this scene is something that you can relate to. Paper calendars and binders and piles of money and sticky notes and all these different ways of collecting information and managing things. All the while, um, this could be an office manager, this could be a school owner, this could be a director, this could be a teacher. All the while she's sitting beside a computer that could actually manage all these tasks with the right software, and that computer could do, probably perform a lot of that tasks and management, in a fraction of the time with a lot less hassle. So you're in the right place if you're spending hours managing communication tools and systems, and if you spend hours every week managing piles of paper. And if you would like to spend more time on higher value tasks like face-to-face conversation with parents and children. And I also want to mention right now that you should stick with me to the end of this of the webinar, because there's going to be something really awesome for you as a bonus, but I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, because I want you to be motivated to see all this information. So I know it's all relevant to you and that you need it. So this is my little carrot. I'll let you wonder what it is for now, but it's going to be really good, I promise. So the first goal here today is to learn how to use each communication tool the right way so that parents actually read your messages and are informed. And the second goal is to learn how to centralize all those communication tools into one simple system so that you don't have to learn and manage contacts and tasks in multiple locations. And the third goal today is to learn how to reduce the time and the expense that goes into using paper in the office for administrative things. And so I just want to talk about me a little bit. And, we live in Toronto, Canada. And here, the Ministry of Education really, really likes to pile on the paperwork. And my wife, Kyla, she's an early childhood educator. And I know firsthand how much time she spends doing paperwork, documenting progress of the children she teaches. It just seems like the amount of work is there's almost as much paperwork as there is teaching work. And, so back in 2011, I decided to look into this problem in the K-12 sector and really just looking for problems and trying to find things that I could, maybe create a solution for. So I just started looking for problems. And what I very quickly learned was that parent engagement is incredibly important for the success of students. And everyone knows that, right? Like, everyone's talking about it. Every school district, has a lot of information about it on their websites. Universities are heavily focused on it. Lots of research happening at Johns Hopkins, at Harvard, at USC, just to name a few of the big ones. But no one's actually addressing what I've come to understand is really the biggest roadblock to parent engagement. So that's when I became obsessed with fixing this issue for whatever reason. I decided it was my mission in life, really, to figure out the system for schools that will not only fix the parent engagement issue, but also make it way easier for school staff to perform their jobs, by removing all the hassles that exist with managing multiple communication tools. And the beautiful thing is, I discovered, is that it's the same solution for both sides of the coin. And that's why I built an kind of an out-of-the-box, all-in-one parent communication system called Hubly. So the lessons I'm going to teach today are all based off thousands of conversations we've had with school directors and teachers and parents and office managers and communication directors, admissions directors. The list goes on. That we used these conversations and this information and research to build and continuously improve Hubly. So this information it's not only coming from conversations and from there's also data because we have a system that actually has managed over 3 million parent messages. And we can look at that data and we can see what works and what doesn't. But I just want to take one step back, and I also want to make sure you understand that everything I'm going to show you here today does not require you to become a Hubly customer. What I mean is nothing that I'm going to show you here today requires you to be a Hubly customer. I'm teaching you strategies that can be applied to any system or tool, and you're probably already using a patchwork of tools that offer most, if not all, the features you need to make this system work. So the truth is, guys, like you probably already know most of what I'm going to say today, but maybe you're not exactly sure how to frame it into words or to put it to use strategically, how to use that information. You've probably heard about all the tools or tried them out here and there, and you're probably really busy running a school, and all of this information is kind of jumbled up into that quote unquote I'll deal with it later drawer in the back of your head. So does that sound familiar at all to anybody? The best way I can describe the conversations I have with people that work in schools is as if I'm slowly lifting up a mirror in front of your face, and in that mirror, you kind of notice that your hair's on fire, but for some reason you didn't clearly realize that, right? You had a sense there was fire somewhere. You could smell the burning. You could see the smoke around you. Meaning like you've got this problem. Things could be better, but you're not quite sure where the fire is and exactly how to put it out. So I'm here today to show you that yeah, your hair probably is on fire, but the good thing is that I'm also going to show you, where the water is. So like you can put out that fire and get immediate relief. Okay, so let's talk about that fire. So the big question, that I came up to myself when I started working on this was, why is building a great parent communication system so hard to nail down? Well, really, schools are not run by digital communication experts, right? They're run by education experts, and that's the way it should be. Like that's the kind of school I want my kids in. But this does create a distinct challenge for schools. Like the reality is that school leaders are creating pretty bad communication systems in comparison to most other types of businesses out there today. So every school we talk to seems to have no standard of communication between the school and the parents. From one teacher to the other, it seems to be a kind of a different story. Whatever, the teachers or the staff seem to just pretty much do whatever they want in regards to not how they teach. We're not talking about the autonomy that teachers need inside the classroom, but the method by which they communicate with the parents. So why aren't school leaders enforcing a standard of communication for parents? Any business, tries to develop the best customer service experience that they can, and aren't parents the customers here, right? Like, shouldn't the quality of communication experience be geared towards what the parents need and want, rather than what the individual school staff members prefer? Like, could you imagine what it would be like if you went to like your local McDonald's restaurant? If you would allow me to, for a moment, compare Montessori to McDonald's, I apologize in advance, but could you imagine what it would be like if every cashier could just decide what form of payment they prefer to accept? So, it's your turn in line. You go up to get an order, to order your burger or whatever, and then you go to pull out your credit card because everywhere else in the world takes credit card, and the cashier said, "Oh no, sir, I really don't like dealing with credit cards. I personally, I only accept cash." Right? Like that would be pretty strange and might be frustrating. And you might decide not to go back to that place the next time, right? So we see on average about 20 different communication tools used in every school on average. So if you think about all the different staff members, what does everyone use? Like for newsletters, announcements, invoices, documentations, progress reports, enrollment forms, the list goes on, right? And we generally find that not only does the office use around 10 tools, like each teacher seems to have their own little patchwork of communication tools that they just decide that this is how they like to communicate between them and the parents. So in reality, most schools are training parents to ignore their messages because the communication spirit experience is really inconsistent, and it's hard for the parents to know what to expect. So schools are actually sending repetitive information over and over with the hopes that parents will read it. And they're sending everything to everyone because it's really hard to kind of group information only to certain parents in context of their child's program or just their individual child. So the reality is that this behavior that schools generally perform, the way they communicate with parents, actually ensures that many parents won't read their messages, which also ends up kind of punishing the attentive parents because the ones that actually do open and read everything keep on getting sort of whacked over the head with the same information. It's not enjoyable. At no point is this a pleasurable communication experience. It's actually a hassle, not just for the school staff that's managing it, but for the parents that are sifting through all this information that's mostly irrelevant to them. It's not a great experience. So, and the result of this lack of communication standard is that, like if there's no standards put in place, like for how staff communicate with the parents, it creates way more workload for everybody on the staff. Because remember, when parents don't like the communication experience, they ignore it or they put it off, and that makes them more likely to miss information. And when they aren't informed, that means more work for everyone else, and it also means less retention and less referrals. Two things that make managing the school much easier. So all of that equals way more work to keep the school running and to keep the school full of students. These are really the most costly things that a school has to manage. So let's do a poll. I want to hear from everyone. How many communication tools are you using at your school, you personally? So if you could use the chat box, Jacqueline, let me know. We'll give you a couple seconds. It takes a minute to think about the different tools, but how many tools are you using? And please, let us know which ones. The email, Facebook, paper, spreadsheets, Doodle, Google, Constant Contact, MailChimp, Sign Up Genius. These are all the examples that we hear from people.
So Anna is using 5 different tools.
Okay.
She hasn't mentioned which ones, but 5 is about 4 too many.
Sure.
And Victoria is using Facebook and paper.
Okay, Facebook and paper. All right.
So Anna said the tools they're using are WhatsApp, notebooks, Gmail, and SMS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, SMS is yep.
Yeah,
Very
Jolanta
common.
is using Facebook, emails, and Doodle.
Okay.
And Philippa just uses phone and paper.
Phone and paper. Okay. So amazing. So that's really what we hear from schools every day, and I'll wager that as we go along in this webinar, you're going to see communication strategies that I'm going to show you. You're going to say, oh yeah, well for that we use this one, and then for this we use that one, and so you'll probably end up thinking about a few more that aren't top of mind right now, and that's what we see. And so we'll move on. So now let's take a look at some statistics. This is based on the U.S., but it does represent other areas in the world as well. The private school sector is growing, right? It's which is which is a trend that's, especially in the U.S., is just going to keep growing. So at the same time, U.S. private schools are actually having a harder time maintaining their enrollment. So what that means is, and I honestly think that these numbers, they don't on the surface paint maybe the prettiest picture, because there's more competition, and it's making hard. It's becoming increasingly harder for private schools to maintain their enrollment. But the bottom line is, and I don't want to come off as rude, but I, I think that if schools start to run, and this is what we see from our customers, if schools run a little bit more like the rest of the business world, and I'm only referring to, the communication side of things, meaning the marketing and the customer service, aka, parent communication, right? The impact will be enormous. So what I mean to say is fixing this problem is actually really easy. It just takes having a framework. So what I've got here now are I've broken down the 8 metrics of school business success, right? Every single business that exists, including schools, live and die by their performance in these 8 metrics, these 8 categories. Okay. Now I've changed the generic, business labels of these to be specific to Montessori schools, but or really just private schools. But if you interchange the term, the school terms with like customers or units or what have you, this actually applies to any business in the world, whether it's a shoe store or a restaurant. But I've just kind of made this a little bit more specific to schools. So if a school is struggling in any one of these areas, so we'll just run through them. We're talking about retention rate, traffic, which really just means the amount of new families learning about your school, the inquiries, which means of those new families that learn about your school, the ones that actually inquire and go through, come to the school and meet you, and come to a tour or an open house. Then enrollments, children per family, average program tuition, and then programs per child, and then of course profit margin. So if a school is struggling in any of these areas, the school will make less money. And or it might even be running at a loss, right? The school owners and directors and the staff will be experiencing more frustration and conflict, and the demands on the time of the whole staff will be through the roof. If probably if a few of these are kind of not doing very well, it really compounds the work on everybody. And at the same time, people will be getting paid poorly. So this all comes down to how good the parent communication system is. So that's why I'm talking about this right now, because regardless of how amazing the teachers are, and regardless of all the magic that's happening inside the classroom, if the business communications side of the school is not great, then the school is not performing as well. And this isn't about profit. Profit is just a result, right? So profit margin, and like we know that people aren't managing schools generally to be a profiteer, right? Like we're doing it because we're passionate about it and because you love education, you know. But if the school is performing better on the business side of things, that means there's more money to invest back into the school, pay the teachers more, add programming, build another room. Just you can make everything better, and just it all results in children having a better outcome. And that's why we're talking about this. So this is a simple spreadsheet that really identifies those 8 key business metrics. And it shows also, I set it up to show an incremental growth of only 10% in each one of these metrics year over year, and how, if you can achieve that in each one of those 8 metrics, if you can improve each one by 10% only every year, you can actually double the school's profits in 2 years. Okay, so if we look here in column 1, we put these industry benchmarks, right? Like, we're basing this off a school that has 100 students. So if your retention rate's around 80%, then you would have to fill up. I'll just skip through. You'd have to fill up. If you have 80%, that means you've got 20 spots to fill, and that means you need 80 inquiries coming in. So the rule of thumb is that you should have 4 times the amount of inquiries coming in as you do spots to fill, so that you can be selective and pick the best families. Because if you can pick the best families, they're much more likely to stay. Because when a family goes, when you don't have enough inquiries and your back is up against the wall, you just take whoever you need to, because hey, you need to pay the bills, you need to pay the teachers. But then they're not the best fit. Those families are more likely to cause problems or just create extra work and leave in a year and take a few more families with them. So these are the metrics that you should be shooting for. And then, children per family. Let's say you've got 1.2 children per family. Let's say your average program tuition is 9,000. That's U.S. So we don't have euros or anything like that. Let's just think U.S. dollars right now. Programs per child. Let's just assume you're at 1. Let's say your profit margin is 10%. Again, that should be the target for the average school. And let's say, again, this is all based on having 100 students. So if those were the metrics of all of those key 8 business success metrics, if that's what you were achieving, you would be at a $93,000 US dollars profit that year. Okay. Now, if you were in year 2, if you were to increase each one of those only by 10%, you would actually see a 46% overall profit increase in year 2. And hey, that's 46% more profit you can put back into the school. And in year 3, we increased the previous year 2's numbers by 10% again. So again, it ends up being a 100% profit increase within 2 years. So how does this work? Well, aside from being a rather cool mathematical trick, the significance is that this strategy allows you to double your profits simply by slightly improving your existing numbers, right? Because everything compounds on the other. And if you approach it in this way and work on each one of these school business success metrics one at a time, just to improve each one only by 10% a year, this is really manageable. And that's why I've broken it down that way. So now what I want to do is I really want to get specific with things to do and not to do, with the different types of tools. So how can you start working on those metrics? So number 1 is you really want to stop using email for group conversations. A lot of times you need to communicate with a group of people, whether it's you and the staff or you and a group of parents, or maybe your parents have a committee and they need to talk to each other. So, recently there's somebody I spoke with. So she had to reschedule a meeting, and it took 45 minutes for her to simply look through this spaghetti-like email thread and figure out, who could or couldn't make the multiple different proposed times by each person, right? And this ends up where everything, everyone's hitting reply all and sending information back and forth, becomes really, really hard to track the conversation. So what you end up with is lovely thread, just like this, with all these messages are collapsed, and you have to open each one, and it's kind of like a stack of bowls of spaghetti, and you're just looking for a couple of noodles here and there of information, but it takes you sometimes over an hour just to figure out who said what and when is that meeting going to happen, right? So I just want to say, just to send this point home, the next time you go hit reply all to an email, I want you to think about the unintended casualties that happen every day from this seemingly innocent behavior. But seriously, I have met school directors who were fired because of a reply all mistake. So if that alone isn't scary enough to deter you, then I hope this poor little kitten can stay in your mind next time you go hit reply all. Think about this poor little guy that isn't going to make it. So strategy number 1, right? So instead of using email for group communication, what you should use is a tool designed for group communication, right? So group threads like this one from the Hubley system are much better for group conversation, because something's posted once, right? And if somebody has a question, everyone can answer. If somebody has a question, the teacher doesn't have to answer it multiple times, or whoever is the sort of person that needs to answer the question. They can answer it one time, and everybody sees the conversation in the thread. So everything's contained in that group. So when people need to find information, it's already organized for them in context, rather than having to sift through their all their email archives and all those spaghetti strings of reply alls and everything. Everything is nicely organized. Your parents parents and your staff have a beautifully organized school information system, and that's what you want. So in summary, social groups like this one here is the example inside Hubly. It has a bunch of great features built specifically for schools. It tracks the engagement, so you can see who read everything and who didn't, and and it's got real-time updates, group-specific events as well. Allows you to answer questions just once, and you can share important media and share documents privately and things like that. These are all the things you want to, you generally do with groups of people, but it can be really difficult to manage it if you don't have a system that's set up for that. Strategy number 2 is you want to make sure that whatever system you use, it has an option to send out notifications automatically. And you want to make sure that it has both email and mobile notifications, so SMS, text messages. So it has a better chance of getting read. So this is fairly standard. It's a fairly standard feature of places like Facebook or Google Groups or Instagram or Twitter. The only problem with some of those tools is that parents can turn off those notifications, and they often do, because there's a whole bunch of other things coming out of those channels. So again, when things are mixed into those channels where everything else is with their personal life or their work life or what have you, your school messages get lost in the mix. So the benefit of a distinct school system like Hubly is that it's a discrete channel of communication, so it doesn't get mixed with everything else. So, also we give we give the school admin sort of the ability to override people's personal settings and make sure if anything's urgent, you can always make sure it gets sent to people no matter what. Whereas you don't have that ability on things like Facebook, where if someone turns off their notification, you can't override that on Facebook. So another really important feature you want to look for, and I really can't stress this enough, is that whatever system or tool you use, make sure the parents don't have to log in to respond or engage. So if you want to increase parent engagement, which you absolutely must remove as many barriers as possible. So you want to use a tool that allows users to reply to system notifications that land in their email or their phone without having to log in, like right from where they see it. If it's an email, they can respond right back. So again, there are a number of tools out there that do that. I know Facebook and LinkedIn are good examples. This is a diagram of how Hubly sort of manages it. So first and foremost, this is about removing barriers and making parent communication as easy as possible for everyone. But there is actually a very valuable ancillary benefit here in Hubly's case, because as a school admin, you actually have the ability to see and see the full documentation of those conversations. So even if, let's say, a staff member and a parent are communicating from email, from their email accounts, it's going through Hubly, and so it's also being archived inside Hubly, and you can access it as the admin in those scenarios where you could actually verify if somebody did read something, or if somebody did say something or didn't say something, that type of thing, which can be helpful in some scenarios. So number 3, calendar management is another place we see schools losing a lot of time that could be much better spent on other higher value tasks. So like many admins I talk to have multiple calendar systems and multiple calendar tools that they're keeping each one of them updated manually. So now you ideally want to create a separate calendar for each class or program, so that parents don't have to sift through events that are not relevant to them. Because if they have to do that, many times they just won't bother, and that's how you get parents being uninformed. If parents have to sift through irrelevant information to find the 10% relevant information, you are going to have more uninformed parents, and not because they don't want to be informed, but because they're busy, and it just like they just naturally put it off, and then they forget about it, and it's just how humans are. Everyone's just all the more busy today. And so it's just like I said before, parents should not have to log in to any system to be informed. So if you notice here on the example in Hubly, this is the Hubly calendar. It has a feature so parents can just synchronize their personal calendars. So any events from the Hubly calendar that's meant for them to see automatically show up in their digital calendar tool of choice, whether it's their phone or their Android or their iPhone or their Google Calendar. So on Hubly, we give you this like one centralized calendar tool that allows you to create and assign events, to any specific programs or groups, and it can send out notification to the parents as well. But like all the features here on Hubly that we have baked into our all-in-one platform, there are many other separate calendar apps out there that will allow parents to subscribe and synchronize to them, and will allow you to manage groups and things like that as well, multiple calendars. So they're out there. It's just we're just showing you obviously the examples from Hubly, but that is a tool you want to use. um,
Um, so Philippa actually has a question regarding communication. She says, imagine there's an interpersonal conflict between some parents and or with teachers. Using Facebook group conversations can create or increase real problems. What is the solution for this? The teacher should filter each comment.
Um, that's a great question. So you want to make sure that your system has the control to for certain parents or certain groups of parents, allow them. So for example, like with Hubly, in our different groups, we allow you to turn off the ability for parents to comment or post things, and just use it as a one-way communication tool. And but for other groups, you might want to give them that ability, and that's up to the school or the staff to decide on a usually on a per program basis, depending on the parents that you have, maybe even just within that 1 year. So if you don't want to have to filter things or be worried about it, or if you can just turn off that feature inside Hubly. But if you want to allow that to happen, because there's great benefits to letting parents engage with each other like that. Of course, there's risk to it too. So like it's something that we give you the ability to sort of turn that on or off on a case by case basis. But it's a great question. So uh, so now I want to talk about newsletters here, because what should go into your newsletters is a big question, because there's a time and place for newsletters. But if you're using all these other tools I'm talking about that have notification features or whatnot, those notification features should be taking care of the majority of your day-to-day announcements and updates to parents, and those reminders or what have you. So newsletters are really best used for less frequent communications that talk about your school on a higher level. If they're not bogged down with the day-to-day details, it'll allow you to write much more engaging and targeted newsletters that will be valued by your parents or prospective parents, right? So your newsletters now should be focused on parent education and giving them tools and understandings that they can use, use at home with their kids, as an example. So your newsletter can become this value add, and a much more engaging thing, rather than this like long list of a bunch of events that are not, or a bunch of information that's more or less irrelevant, 90% irrelevant to all the parents and only 10% relevant to them. You can actually make your newsletters 100% relevant to everybody. So this is just an example of the Hubly newsletter designer. Has all the same kind of functions and features you'll find in other newsletter tools like MailChimp or Constant Contact or MadMimi, just to name a few. There's a bunch out there. So of course with Hubly, it's not a separate tool, so you don't have to like manage lists and contacts in separate systems or what have you. And as I mentioned earlier, the average school is actually spending about $2,000 per month, with the cost of buying paper and printer ink and photocopy repairs and postage and all that stuff. Um, so you really want to cut down the paper. So the best way to do that, and what we're talking about, is paper in the office, like the administrative paper. I don't mean the crafts or whatnot. That paper has its place for sure in the classroom, but think about the piles and the mounds of paper that are being managed every day inside school offices. So you want to use a digital form tool. So this is an example of Hubly's digital form. This is just a simple field trip form, but this tool could be used for every type of paperwork, whether any type of form that parents fill out and any type of documentation that that teachers make regarding children, whether it's a scope and sequence or a progress report or an incident report or attendance or a sign in, sign out, all these things should be done digitally. Hubly gives we have a tool that, our digital forms tool handles all those scenarios. This is just a simple example of a field trip, but you know basically people can fill this out on any digital device, and the fields can be more or less filled out for the parent because they log in, they can do a digital signature, they can take payments, and the most important thing is once these forms are submitted, the job's done. There isn't collecting paper and organizing paper and like typing the information from the paper into a database or anything like that. All that it's automatically, the parents fill it out. It's a lot easier to fill out a digital form, and then it's in the database automatically because it's filled out digitally, and it goes, and then all you have to do is do a search, or print them off, or export them. So looking up information takes seconds rather than hours. So I want to introduce you to an actual case study. So Amy was a parent volunteer at her daughter's Montessori school. She was a really active parent volunteer, and the type that's very common. Like, she's very successful, she's a brilliant woman, she's very, very busy, and at the same time she puts in so much volunteer time at her daughter's school. So during the re-enrollment phase of the school, she would actually manage it was weeks of transferring paper. They would actually send this parent packet out to all the families, they would get it back, and the families would, she would spend weeks typing the information from the paper, which is like a stack of 30 sheets of paper, into FileMaker Pro, and then so that was just like weeks of work of a parent volunteer. Otherwise it would have had been performed by somebody on the staff, but they couldn't even handle it. They have to get parent volunteers. So they started using Hubly's digital forms, and that entire enrollment process was completely deleted, meaning their forms, their parent packet every year takes them about an hour to manage, right? So they don't even need her to volunteer for that anymore. She does other things for the school because she's that type of person, but now they're using her brilliant talents and skills to much higher value tasks. I mean, so rather than just kind of like pounding keys, doing very remedial stuff, she can actually put her her energy and her abilities into things that have a much bigger outcome for the school. Another helpful tool is to use digital polls, because people are always making decisions and voting, things like that. So this is great for scheduling meetings, deciding on what gift you want to send your favorite parents, anything really. It's just it's a poll. So the point is that if you were to do this through that group email thread that I was talking about before, it could be a pretty daunting task. But if you want to just let everybody answer really quickly. This is like an example of a Hubly poll that you could throw together in like 20 seconds. But and then it makes collecting the information. Let's say you're voting on when the next meeting should be. Obviously Wednesday here is the winner, so you would go with Wednesday, and everybody could see the results, and it's just a great democratic and easy thing to do. And when you're dealing with a digital form provider like Hubly, we're going to organize your entries for you, so you don't have to even type them in manually, like into a spreadsheet or a database or anything like that. And when you have to find something like simple, you can just search and sort. What we do is, let's just say, a teacher is going to fill out, an incident report. So the teacher can fill it out, and then upon filling it out, a notification could automatically go out to a parent, or it could automatically go to an admin that then approves the message to then just click approve, and then it goes to the parent. And then also all of these forms show up on every child's got a page where it's kind of like a digital filing cabinet for that child. So we give parents that access, that private access to their child's records, and it's all of this stuff is being organized, and the messages are being sent automatically by the system. So these are all these different little steps that you don't have to spend time doing. Again, the teacher can just fill out the form, click or tap and done, and then the whole process is handled without all those other steps in between. And think about all those different little processes and workflows that you do with paper that take so much time, just because getting information from paper to somebody or into a system is incredibly time consuming because it's manual. But if you use digital forms, all of those extra steps, first of all, the form is a much nicer experience for the parents. And then all of those other steps are done. The system handles all those other steps of managing the data. So, you can just go and find what you need in seconds. So there's just so much time that you can take out of your week. And just another example, this is Corey Pierce. He's a teacher, and he likes to do field trips. He's a music teacher out of high school, and but the problem is when every time he wanted to do a field trip, there was like 3 hours of paper management, right? He'd go to the office, print off a form, hand it to the kids, get it back from the kids, and that would take weeks, and just for one field trip. And then he's managing this growing stack of paper every day a couple more forms come in. He's got to keep it all organized, and if he wants to create a list, for like when the bus goes and he wants an attendance list or what have you, he has to then write it out from the paper onto that list. And so when he started using Hubley's digital forms, he was able to do 14 field trips in 1 year. And in total, it took him an hour to manage all of those 14 field trips because it was really just a matter of copying a previous form and renaming it and putting on a different date. And that took like a couple clicks. So all the information, all of that back and forth, the collecting the data, all that stuff is happening automatically, and it makes a list automatically. And all of those things that just take 5 minutes here, half an hour here, 10 minutes there, 10 minutes there. And then he's not walking around with all that paper, managing all that paper, which is just really troublesome. It's a hassle. It just removes that entire experience. So another really important tool here is this is Hubley's scheduling tool. So something that a lot of schools are doing, again, just administrative things. Let's say you got parent-teacher conferences, or you're booking prospective families to come in and come in for tours. Those things can be done automatically. You can set up availability for different staff members, and a lot of schools use Sign Up Genius or other scheduling tools. So this is Hubley's version. It's just a way of making things more automated and digital, so that again it's all centralized in one place, and everything synchronizes and sends reminders to the parents and lets them cancel, and then that slot can be available to somebody else automatically without having to manage pieces of paper on a bunch of doors, and everything's done manually. Again, it just removes hours of work and actually makes a more pleasurable experience for everybody. And up until now, we've been talking about like the internal communications, but with your enrolled parents. But I want to switch gears now and talk about communicating with prospective parents, right? So most Montessori schools today want to increase their enrollment numbers, or at least want to increase the number of inquiries of families that are actually looking for a school like yours. So rather than parents who are just looking for anything, because you all know that parents that are more in line with the values of Montessori method are more likely to stay, and the ones that aren't are more likely to leave in a year and take a few families with them. So the best way to feel confident in directing the wrong families, and being selective and not just taking anybody, is to have enough inquiries. So you don't feel like your back is up against the wall. So when set up properly, your school's website should be getting found by prospective families, and it should be increasing the number of inquiries that are coming in that are an ideal fit for your school, and then driving them to your enrollment process. So another way to think about your school's website is like a billboard, right? I often give this analogy when helping people understand what their Hubley website are. We do web hosting. We give schools websites as well, and we help them get found by in the search engine. So this is one of the core features that we offer, and in fact, all of our other features that I've shown you here today, are all sort of centralized into that one system and all accessible in that site. So it's all kind of packaged and delivered through this high-performing website. So everyone knows that they need a website. And I don't think I've come across a single school that doesn't have something online. But what I find is that most school directors or owners don't really understand what their website is meant to do for them. So one thing that is key about your website, it should be designed with the purpose not to actually sell your school. Its purpose is to get the right families to inquire about your school. and to enter into your enrollment process, right? This is a really important distinction because you should not be trying to sell someone on the Montessori method on your website. Like, that is what the rest of your enrollment process is for when they come into an open house or when they come in and do a tour at your school. But the point at which they find your school online is when it's all about getting them to that open house. And that's what your website design should be focused on. So one of the best ways to engage prospective parents is to use a blog, actually. So your blog is a great place to answer, common questions that prospective parents may have. But what I want to say is it's very important. Please pay attention here. The most important rule about blogging that you need to stick to is to be consistent, above all else. So whether your school is just starting a blog or you want to just kind of wipe dust off the cobwebs of an inactive blog, the biggest thing to keep in mind is to keep it consistent. So one of the most important elements of internet marketing in general is trust, especially when someone's just finding you online, right? Either from an ad or from searching on Google. So this doesn't necessarily mean you need to post every week. It doesn't have to be a big daunting task, but you just have to make sure that you stick to a schedule, a regular schedule. Ideally, you want to send out around a post the same time on the same day each week, or once a month, or every other week. So just make sure it's regular and consistent, right? So just think about it for a second. How bad would it look if a parent was to go to your blog and see articles that are in a sporadic timeline, one post this month, two the next, and then no post for 3 months after that, right? This is likely to put the rest of your organization in the same unorganized light. So that's not something you want to happen at all, right? You don't want parents to think that. So here's a little action tip, okay? Use your teachers in your administrative team to carve out a posting schedule that's not too daunting, right? The best way to do this is to assign a different staff member each week to post something. Really easy, really manageable. It just keeps it nice and simple. So write that down. And you want to make sure that you're writing about parent-focused content. You want to make sure that your topics are relevant. You should think of your blog as a value-added content that's a gift you're just giving out for free. It should be good enough that someone would literally buy it for a few dollars, okay? Every blog post should be worthy of being purchased, right? So some ideas could be how to get your kids to eat healthy, or the top 3 strategies for handling sibling fights, right? You want to come up with some blog ideas just to, just put yourself in the shoes of the parents, right? Like, what's driving them crazy today? Match that with the wisdom inside your school, and you're going to get people that are going to see you as as a school that has deep wisdom, and that makes them much more likely to choose your school over another school. So great way to do this is have your team brainstorm some topics for your blog, right? And make sure that you keep one master list of ideas. So everything is on the same page. You want to make sure everything's on the same page, all your ideas. And you can ask each teacher to come up with one topic, and you'll have in the few months you'll have the next few months planned out in no time. So if you just approach things like this, it can be really easy and manageable. So here's the ultimate way to really achieve, your school admin workload reduction. If you really want to simplify your parent communication, you want to set up some automated workflows to handle the tasks that you repeat on a regular basis. So here's an example of an automated enrollment workflow that we recently built for one of our customers inside their Hubly site. So I'll just explain the steps. So at the very top, somebody did a Google search, they clicked on a Facebook ad, and they came to the school's website, and on that site they filled out one of those digital forms, which was an inquiry form. And then the school admin would be notified automatically, and then right away that prospective parent would start getting a sequence of emails, and this is all automated. And those emails are basically explaining the school and convincing helping that parent understand that school, and driving them to book that tour, which is done using that automated scheduling feature I showed you. And then after that, the admin, after they come in for the tour, the admin will get a task sent to them automatically saying, hey, this person came in and they need to be approved or not to go into the application form. So all the admin has to do is you get a reminder, you get a task created for you automatically by the system, and you click on approve, right? And then automatically an email will go out to that prospective family. You don't have to write it from scratch. It's pre-written, and it can be a beautiful email with your brand and all your messaging, and it sends them to fill out the application form, which they do online, and they can do their signature and even pay an application fee and so on. And so you want to create this automated but linear process, and you can also see where everybody is, and you don't lose track of where your prospective families are at whatever point they're at during your enrollment process. So here's my question for you. What do you think? So I'm not exactly sure why you showed up here today, but I bet I can guess. You want to be able to send messages to parents and trust that they get read by the parents. But you don't necessarily trust the system that you have, like just to keep on following up and resending the same communications over and over again. So you want to free up your time from those like boring, repetitive, remedial activities like sorting through sheets of paper, so you can spend more time on higher value tasks that have a much greater impact on your school and children. And you know that you're capable of doing more. You just need to get these roadblocks out of your way so you can create more margin in your day to focus on things that are much more important. And you want to give your parents a communication experience that they actually appreciate and don't feel that they need to dodge. So it's time for you to remove the hassles of inefficient patchwork communication systems and free your staff with a simple to use all-in-one system. A system that removes all the guesswork out of the implementation and allows your staff to focus on their highest value tasks. You can do this. And I just want you to remember, nothing I've shared with you today is theory. I've actually implemented every single one of these strategies to help schools grow. And I'm not like some extra special, brilliant Einstein. I just have a system that works. If I can do this, you definitely can do this too. So do you want to know how to simplify and reduce parent communication workload by 90% without causing revolt at your school from your staff? So you've got two options, right? Option one is to, take the information I've given you here today, which is pretty high level, and then figure out how to make the changes on your own. But I'm sure you've guessed, I've got something to share with you that will make this all much simpler. So I'm pretty sure, like most school leaders, you're really busy and you don't have the time to figure all this stuff out on your own. So we've started offering schools a parent communication assessment. But before I start telling you about this, I want to get your permission. So do I have your permission to take a few minutes and tell you about how this report works? So Jacqueline, please let me know if anybody gives us this permission. I want to wait until we get an affirmative from the audience today. So please type in the chat box. Let me know if I have your permission to take a few minutes and tell you about how this all works.
Dana and Jolanta and Philippa all say yes, you have their permission.
Okay, thanks, guys. The Hubley Parent Communication Report Card is the absolute fastest way to learn exactly what your school needs to attain huge workload reductions in your parent communication system so that you can free up your time to focus on your highest value tasks. So what you learn from this assessment is how your website's performing for speed and security and overall search engine optimization, how you can increase the amount of inquiries of prospective families that are the best fit for your school, while also tracking them through an enrollment process without any effort, and how you can substantially reduce the hassles and the workload of managing all forms of parent communications. What you get is you get a 1-hour live one-on-one session with me. You get an actionable report with specific strategies and tools that you can employ. And optionally, you can get a 50% discount off the Hubley setup and training. If you decide you want to use Hubley's system to just, get this all set up for you out of the box without having to, take the information and set it up yourself. Also, if you decide to do that with Hubly, we'll give you 1 month free. So again, these are optional. You don't need to be a Hubly customer to use this information. You can use it with any other system. But if you want to use Hubly system, we're going to give you some huge discounts if you do this report with us. So are you ready to learn exactly what you need to do to create a simple and efficient parent communication system? So what's the investment? You're probably wondering how much this would cost. So you could keep doing what you're doing, right, and have the school spending over $30,000 per month per 100 students simply on managing communication tools. Or another option is that you could hire a consultant for thousands of dollars to come and set up this patchwork communication system, and have their own sort of individual costs, each one of those little pieces. But I happen to know that the school management consultants that I speak with are more focused on what you need to do, teacher training and staff training, and don't know much about how to actually create a system to handle 90% of it automatically. So you'll have to find one that does both. Uh, so the question is, what's the value of this offer today? So the Hubly assessment, the regular price is $268. It's a standalone assessment. The Hubly setup fee is $1,999. This is all US dollars, by the way. The Hubly monthly fee is $199 per month. And so the total value is $2,466. You can get started today. Everything is available to you for just $67, right? So we've made it as easy as possible for you to get a really big result with very little expense. So the Hubly assessment, the regular price is $268. That's brought down to $67. The Hubly setup fee, if you want to use Hubly, you'll be able to get the setup at 50% off for only $9.99. The Hubly's the first month of the service is zero, so that's $199 brought down to zero. So your total savings, if you sign up for the assessment today at $67, you're going to get an entire savings opportunity of $1,400. So get started today. The offer ends today. It's available to you now. You can go to hubly.com/getreport, and it's just $67. I also want to mention, guys, that we offer a 100% money-back guarantee plus $25 for your time. So if you go to hubly.com/getreport, you'll also be able to purchase it right here. I'm gonna let you. In a moment. I'm gonna show you I'm gonna drop down a button that you can use to actually purchase the assessment for $67. But if you do it and you don't feel it was useful, we'll give you every penny back, and we'll give you $25 for wasting your time. So just bear with me a second. I'm going to now what I'm going to do is, sorry, I got to stop sharing my screen for one. Start again. Sorry about the switcher end. Just want to make sure you guys are seeing my screen okay, and great. So now I'm going to drop down the offer. So you should now be seeing an offer where you can click to purchase the report right now. And I'm just here to answer questions at this point on anything. You can ask about the report. You can ask about anything we covered today. Please let me know, guys, if you have any questions. This is the time to shoot them out rapid fire, and I'll answer anything I can. I'm going to actually answer a previous question by Yolanta. You said, by blocking, do you count also a school's Facebook page? I do, actually. That's really one of the best ways to use Facebook is to post. Like, you should blog on your site. So let's just say you were a Hubly customer. You would have a website that you could use as a blog. You don't. By the way, about half of Hubly customers don't use their Hubly site as their main website. They just use it as an additional communication platform that connects to their main site. But a lot of customers of ours use their Hubly site as their main site, and they use the Hubly blogging tool, and they post their blog in their Facebook page. That's something that you should do, generally speaking, because you can then um, uh, bring people from Facebook to, and this is meant to be geared towards your prospective families, not your enrolled. Facebook is not a good tool for managing communication with your enrolled families. It is great. It's a great tool for connecting with prospective families. Okay, Yolanda, social media accounts for school is very important nowadays. Does Hubly reduce time spent there as well? Yes, it does. Absolutely. Um, yeah, so social media accounts, again, on a marketing level is really, really crucial. But the big mistake most schools make is using those tools for internal communication. That's where the problem really exists. So you want to focus your social media usage on marketing to the public to help you connect with prospective families, and Hubly replaces the features and the benefits of all those different social media tools for communicating with internally with your enrolled families. There's a big distinction there. And we also do connect to your social media account. So it really does, it's your one place as a hub. So you can, again, simplify simplify your processes and reduce the steps that you have to go through to do your marketing and to communicate with your enrolled existing families. Any more questions, guys? Please feel free to ask any questions that you have. And this report, if you want to, basically what we're going to do is we're going to just to describe it a little bit more in detail. We'll run through what your school is doing, and we're going to give you, we're going to do an assessment on, again, the performance of your website. We're going to assess how it's performing in three main areas, which is page performance, page load speed, the search engine optimization that you have, its security. Actually, there's four, and then also in its design, whether it's mobile friendly and how well it responds to every type of display out there. Those are four really crucial elements that we're going to do an assessment for you on your website. We're not going to be talking about like the design of your website. We're going to be talking about how it's performing as a tool for being found and connecting with prospective families, and also as a tool for communicating with your currently enrolled families, and how it can be a tool to help maintain a higher retention level and to help you, again, reduce your workload. And then on top of that, we're going to run through every other different communication and process that you have. And we're going to look at your specific tool set that you currently have. And we can give you really easy tips for making those work better for you, and also for how how they can an actual goal for you, so to see what impact that the improvement can have on your bottom line. Danny, you're saying thank you for the information. We are at the beginning now and not from the USA. I will save your website for the future. We'll have more students. So we can certainly, Dan, I would suggest now is really the best time to get a good strategy under your belt. The assessment is really a really good option for you. You certainly don't need to be a Hubly customer at all at any point to make use of the assessment. But it's consulting. It's $67 US to get a really deep understanding. I will help you understand the most important things for you to do at the stage that you're at for starting off a new school. So communication internally is not that complicated, but I can help you on a marketing level and draw up a strategy for you so you know exactly what to do step by step to be found by the right prospective families and how to engage them at every step along the way. That's something that we do really, really well. A lot of schools sign up with us. A lot of schools actually sign up for Hubly before they even, for like, aside from the assessment, they actually sign up for Hubly before they even have a school, because Hubly gives them a tool to start growing a list of prospective parents and start engaging them in a certain way, because you would engage them a certain way before you have the school, but before you're ready to launch for your first year, there's a lot of great strategies that you can employ that are actually easy and will set you up for success. I want you to consider, if you're starting a school now and you have to start doing enrollment, how much better will it feel if you have hundreds of families that have signed up to get information about your new school that's coming out. Yeah, that's right, Dana. Whether you're a kindergarten or not, thank you everybody for being so engaging, by the way. But Dana, yes, if you're a kindergarten or not, it makes no difference. Are there any more questions, either about the report or just questions in general? Any questions on any of the slides, or the topics that we spoke about today? And just to mention, guys, the information that you're going to get from the report, from the parent communication report card, that assessment it's completely universal, no matter what country you're in. And also, same with Hubly. We have customers in Europe, in USA, in Canada, using Hubly as a tool. So it can certainly help anybody here. So if you sign up for the assessment, you don't have to be a Hubly customer at all to get value out of the assessment itself, but you do get a huge discount. You get a 50% off the setup. So you're going to save up to $1,400 if you do the assessment as well. So it's a good option to have if you want to, if you decide later to use Hubly. Does anybody have any feedback? Did you guys find this information helpful? Did anybody learn something new? And being that we've got people from also, from various countries, I'd love to hear if anyone feels that or thinks that there's things that are different because of where you're from. It's our experience that this information is very universal, because we're talking about communication methods, not what to say, or what questions to ask on your parent forms or what have you. And we know that every country generally has their, obviously their own rules and regulations. But we find that our tool is our information in our tool is generally completely universal. But I certainly would love to hear if there's any feedback from somebody from another country that whether this relates, if the information relates to you, or if it's or if you think there's something different about your country and it's a different scenario. So we're going to be wrapping up in a minute here, and just to see if there's anybody that has any more questions. We're going to be ending the webcast in just over 2 minutes. So I just want to see if there's any questions that anybody has. And anyone that didn't mention where you're joining us from, please type in the chat box. What countries are you from? Okay, so we're going to be ending the webcast now. I really appreciate everybody's input and questions, and thank you for joining us from all over the world. It's been a real pleasure getting to connect. You can connect with us at Hubly.com. Again, if you want to get that parent communication report later on, you can get that at Hubly.com/getreport. And of course, you can email me directly with any questions at Jono, that's JONO, at Hubly.com. Me, of course. And